right, everybody. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Get Ready. And very excited today for this guest that I have. Farah Pallaro is a friend of mine from Italy and was a very gracious host to my wife and I when we toured the beautiful city of Florence, and where, of course, my good friend David resides. And Farah, well, let me read a little bit about her. So after working as a fashion designer for well-known luxury brands, Farah began her consultancy journey in 2009. In the almost 20 years in the fashion industry, she's had the opportunity to work with top international brands, schools, and institutions. With a holistic approach that focuses on the human aspect in projects and organizations, and a background in studies in law school, fashion design, and professional and entrepreneurship mentoring, her mission is to contribute to the fashion industry to evolve into a more ethical direction by supporting the professionals that build it every day. Welcome, Farah.
Hello, Brad, and welcome to everyone that is listening to this interview. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, my pleasure. It is so great to see you again. And so tell me, you talked about how the fashion industry is evolving and how values are changing. So tell me a little bit about that and where you are wanting to see it go.
Yes. Well, fashion industry, it's one of the industries that are having to review their value system, as many others, of course, because of everything that is happening. And, after we've been all, in lockdown for many months, and we all have done internal psychotherapy, because when you're close at home, you have to create an internal dialogue with yourself. So a lot of people is questioning, do I need goods? Do I need luxury goods? Do I need to buy more stuff? Is needed clothes and all this stuff? Or, I've been home with my sweatpants all day long. So
I was just going to say, fashion for the last year has been, sweats.
Flat. And I was like, flat, no
It's all
fashion
about
at
the
all.
masks now.
Exactly. So this is, of course, the customer is changing. We're all changing. We're all evolving, thanks God, I hopefully into a positive direction. So the fashion industry is currently reviewing priorities, values, services, and products. And, there has been already a lot of years that the fashion industry have talked about being more sustainable when it comes to the product, but very little when it comes to ethics and human rights and, having in consideration the people, right? So
Yeah,
my
we've all
work,
seen The Devil Wears Prada. So
absolutely. And believe me, is nothing compared to what you find in many design departments and many places. That was just very light. So, by the way, this morning I was speaking, just a detail. I was speaking with a colleague of mine that, actually there is a report of a mental health institution that says that the 60% of fashion professionals have suffered at least once in their professional career of, mental health problems.
wow.
And from that 60%, at least 18% are under some sort of prescription medicine and some sort of support. So that is how, stressful is the industry. So going back to your question, yes, the industry is implementing changes into something more valuable, more positive, more ethical. And this is what I do with my business. I try to support professionals into and entrepreneurs into shifting into that direction. So I'm very hopeful to what is happening and how to, let's see if this time is the right one.
Absolutely. And, as we look at all of the tumult, political and otherwise around the world, and how that has been compacted by the pandemic around the world.
Yeah.
And it really has been a time to reflect on values and what we want the world to look like when we're actually able to come back out and see each other.
Exactly. And something that we need to be very much aware of is that yes, we still have the pandemic and there is the health crisis, but there is also an economic crisis very much present, and fashion industry is suffering a lot already economically speaking. There's been in Italy, for example, there is a law that makes company, they cannot fire people until I believe is May this year, because that way the government can support the companies, and avoid that huge amount of people that soon unfortunately is going to end up without a job, because companies are reducing the teams. They have the stores closed, they're not selling online. Yes, some companies have organized themselves with e-commerce, some other not. So this is what is also very much present, the economic issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see how the pandemic would take a particular hard hit on the fashion industry because, one, so many people don't have the extra funds to be purchasing new clothes,
Yeah.
and two, not feeling much of a need to do so. It's like,
Exactly, exactly,
I have
exactly.
enough different shirts for my Zoom calls,
Exactly,
and most people
exactly.
aren't bothering to wear pants. So,
Exactly, exactly. And this is in a way this era of Aquario that we're all speaking about. We end up there of Capricorn. It was more about materialism and having stuff, and now is more about the consciousness and the communities and the technologies and innovation. It's not how much stuff you have. It's more about the experience you're able to have, which we now realize how that was the luxury, the experience that we used to have traveling and being with the loved ones. And so the whole value system is changing again. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and it's exciting to think about how that can play into the fashion industry and having the fashion industry look at it in that way because
Yeah.
certainly there's always the pageantry of the fashion weeks and the sometimes extreme
Yeah.
outfits that are out there and for a lot of people thinking in terms of fashion as, oh, it's this thing out there that most people don't
Yeah.
experience in that
Yeah.
way, but to look at it and having people relook at it, and particularly as people, as we are able to open up and people are able to come out um, in public and how they want to appear and how they want to present
Yes.
themselves.
Yes. And you mentioned the fashion shows, and because you love art, and I know you will understand the fashion industry at the early stages of the fashion industry. Of course, it's still present when you see haute couture shows. Fashion industry was a way of expressing yourself. It had a lot of artistic expression, and we still had it, not as much as you had 20 years ago, but we still have amazing creative thinkers that create not just clothes. They create more than that. They create incredible trends that affect society, and they help society in a way to evolve. If you think, when Mary Quant invented the miniskirt, that was very much into, another new statement for women in the 60s, and so on. Or if Saint Laurent with the democratic fashion concept. So fashion always had that as artistic vibe that unfortunately in the 90s with globalization and all the huge demand of profit, we lost it, and fashion brands became merchandisers where they were selling huge quantities of products. So what I think is going to happen is that we're going to go back to the roots in a way, and because the new drivers of the fashion industry are going to be the small medium businesses, the ones that have that capacity to reinvent themselves quick, because the big companies, they don't have that capacity to reinvent themselves quick. So they're going to pick up in art, I think, in that artistic expression of the essence of beauty, right, and harmony. And I think that is also something that is in the melting pot
Yeah,
now.
yeah. Well, and as we hopefully allow ourselves to be our best selves,
Yes.
and then how we adorn ourselves being a reflection of that and an amplification of that.
Yes, yes. It's I mean, the self-discovery process and the working in yourself is extremely important. And by the way, you cannot imagine, Brad, how many fashion professionals are following you. You know, after they find you in my book, you're helping them a lot, because there's a lot of friends and colleagues in Milan that they are in lockdown, and they used to work in, you know, important roles in magazines, and they're home because the company are living at home, and the stress levels are so high. So they're using meridian tapping every single day when they wake up to, you know, to maintain their nervous system in a way calm, without having to take, you know, prescription medicine and all that, because there is a huge uncertainty for them at the moment. So
I'm very happy to hear that. It's, yeah, I mean, obviously there are a number of stressors in the fashion industry, and certainly the competition, the need to perform, and those kind of things can really get in the way of one's creativity.
yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
you know, do this now, perform in this way, and be really creative. Um,
Yes, it is
wait a
like
minute.
that. It is like that. It is like that. You create either from balance, and that you need time to produce a creation process when you create from balance, or either you create from trauma, which is quicker. And this is what the fashion industry pushes. The problem is that from a long period of time, you cannot sustain that creating from trauma. And this is why we see cases like McQueen, you know, taking his life, and, you know, in
Right,
extreme cases, right?
right.
So it's very,
Yeah.
very important, all these supporting tools like the one that you give.
And then also being able to reduce the stress that comes up in terms of uh, the fear of taking risks, because that's certainly one of the things that has driven fashion forward, are the risk takers, the people who have been, you know, you referenced the miniskirt. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
this could be a total bomb.
Yes.
You know, there are
Yeah.
all kinds of fashion statements, and things that now are commonplace.
Yeah.
You know, it's always interesting to me when, you know, watch period pieces on in TV or movies, and you look at the different outfits that people, and what was accepted at that time, and what people would frown at, and then imagining those people being here today, and
Yeah.
seeing what we wear,
Yes. Yes.
and you know, and just that the evolution of fashion is kind of
Yeah, yeah.
fascinating.
Well, I think that you know, as you know, I experienced it myself when I launched my book, Fashion Business Spirituality, and I start talking about bringing spiritual practice into the fashion industry. You can imagine how people would look at me, like saying, "What are you talking about? About are you going to bring candles and, you know, whatever, or the tarot cards?" And say, "It's not that. I mean, it's a different thing." But I think that, you know, when you approach to creative industries in general, you are in a way you are a pioneer, you know, in because you follow your intuition. You in order to be in a creative industry, you need to use a lot of the lateral thinking and be a very avant-garde and a risk taker, as you said, you know. And yes, creative industries like the fashion industries attract a lot of sensible people, and that is part also of the problem. You know, you come into this industry thinking that it's all beauty and shows and all that thing, and that is, if you're lucky, a 5% of it. The rest is like hard work, very demanding industry that literally can break you if you don't have your supporting system with you, if you don't have your core and you know who you are. Right?
Yeah,
Um so yes.
yeah, it's high wire act. You need to have that net.
Exactly, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is in a way is also acting. You know, acting. You start your career with acting, right?
Yes.
So it's voila, it's the same principle, it's the
Yeah,
same
it's
thing.
one of my favorite things is working with actors, because that any of the creative fields, and having that support, because you are putting yourself out there.
Mm.
So now that you've referenced your book, why don't you tell folks a little bit about it?
The book. My God, everything I think in the book is like, what? The book is one day randomly I had this intuition to create bridges between fashion and spirituality, which means that there is a lot of spirituality into the fashion practices, and spirituality is something that should be in all our life. It has nothing to do with religion. It's not dogma. It's being in connection with the self, right? Is finding the answers within, and is hopefully is where we're all going into this new era of Aquarius, of a more spiritual one, right? So there are many aspects into the fashion industry when you're a designer and you're creating, when you are working with the product and the craft. And I wanted to create this book with hands-on material as a fashion insider working 20 years in the fashion industry and studying philosophies, spiritual philosophies for more than 20 years, to combine spiritual philosophies as a supporting tool for the fashion professionals. And together with this, I had the amazing opportunity to meet people like you in my personal journey. Remember that you were the only one taking from me away the fear of flying. Thanks to Meridian Tapping. It was thanks to you that I'm able to fly without taking chamomile tea or whatever,
Yeah.
or a whiskey, something like that.
Right.
So the book was a project that wanted to bring this knowledge, this showing also people like you and how what you do can be a supporting tool for fashion professionals. I never expected all this success of the book. It created an amazing community, and so far it has helped a lot of people, and the project is still going. The book is doing great, and it was going to be in Italian, translated in Italian and in French in 2020. That of course changed to 2021 because you cannot do the presentations and all that. And the second book, because this book speaks about the three first generations of fashion professionals, the students, that no one thinks about them, but they're part of the system.
Right.
And they are very, very important. And the juniors in the industries and the seniors. And I wanted to do the second book about the entrepreneurs, the people that choose to do their own system in the fashion industry with their brands and companies. And the second book was going to launch in 2021, so it's going to go to 2022, but it's perfectly fine because divine timing tells me that now is the time to discuss these things more openly, right? So
Right.
before it was too early, maybe. So this is what my editor says all the time. Farah, trust me, now is the time. Now is the time. So yes, I'm very happy.
Yeah. Well, and it's such a great concept of, taking what can be such a stressful industry and bringing in and acknowledging spirituality not only as a support
Yeah,
but also as an inspiration. It's like how can spirituality support me in
yeah,
creating, but
yeah,
how can it also inspire me in
yeah,
creating, and then what that then does for the world at large, because the
yeah.
fashion industry does have such a profound effect on society, more so than I think most people recognize.
Absolutely. I think we are the second most impactful industry in the world. I mean, when it comes to products and of course environmental impact as well, but when it comes also to the money that the fashion industry creates, right? The economy.
Hmm.
And it's so crazy because, talking about what you were saying, that how fashion professionals use spirituality without knowing it. When you designers, when they create, they are channeling ideas. They are in connection with the spirit. So, but they are not aware of that. So there is a non-connection and connection that happens all the time in the fashion industry. So you're mostly all the time disconnected because you are in your ego mind, under stress levels. But then when you start in the phase of the creating practice, you connect again, right? So it's very, this is why also you are never in balance, right? So there is a way you can be productive. There is a way you can do your work right, but being in balance is perfectly possible.
Yeah.
right?
And
It's really possible.
acknowledging that that spirituality, even if it's not a formal religious practice or something like that, but acknowledging the big. I totally agree with you. I think in any creative endeavor, it's a channeling process. It
Absolutely.
we're prisms that the light comes through and comes out as a rainbow, and but it's not. It's through us and not by us.
Oh, yes.
And to me, that's so freeing to know that it creates more of an opening. It takes the pressure off, and I can imagine, particularly in a high stress industry like fashion, where it's the same with in acting. We talk about show business. There's show and there's
Yeah.
business, and so
Yeah.
often the artistry and the creativity of show is lost in the business. And so to be able to acknowledge that the show, and to be able to acknowledge that connection,
Yeah.
and and again, not only be comforted by that and supported by that, but also inspired by that,
Yeah.
is brilliant.
Yeah, it's so fair when you're saying that of acting. The first thing that comes to my mind is the difference between movie acting and theater, right? It's because it doesn't have the of course theater has the business as well, but there is something more true, more organic that you can feel when you go to see a play instead of, when you see this thing in movies, right?
Right, right. Well, that's why we talk about how film is the director's medium, television
Yeah.
is the writer's medium, and stage is the actor's medium.
Yeah.
Because in film, yeah, they're editing. There's a lot of what is evoked is so technical often in the
Mm,
editing, but yeah, on stage, it's all
yeah.
the actor.
Yes.
Obviously there's direction and writing that goes into that and helps create
Mm,
that, but once it's on stage, it's up to the actor to be able to move it forward and evoke the emotion. So
yes.
absolutely. And so like any creative individual, wanting to have those practices, and to have a spiritual connection and a spiritual practice
Mm.
of some kind to both support and inspire.
Absolutely. And I read the other day, I don't remember who said it, that it's one of the main reasons why we block success, or achieving goals is because it's not ours, it's our nervous system blocking it. Right. So it's so funny that now that you're saying this thing of acting, I'm in, the actors that do plays, I'm thinking, oh my God, putting their self, their 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 soul, because you have to open yourself literally in front of all that people, right? With all the imposter syndrome going on, the nervous system going on. So I understand why you help a lot of actors. I mean, meridian tapping is, I think, is so important that you have it as a tool, because even if you have everything figured out, it
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. And it's likewise true in the fashion industry of what you put into it.
Yeah.
And really with any industry, I think that so many people don't acknowledge how much of themselves they put into it. Even if you're working in IT or whatever field, and certainly in our day-to-day lives, in our relationships, in how
Yeah.
we interact with our parents or our kids or our neighbors, and sometimes we don't acknowledge how where our nervous system might be, and how much we might at an unconscious level feel like we're putting ourselves at risk, and
Yes.
we kind of push that away, and then stress builds up.
Yeah.
And so definitely to recognize that, and be more compassionate with ourselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I work for different fashion luxury brands, which I cannot say the name, of course, because for legal issues that I may face if I say this. But in two cases, the creative directors, the art directors, they were literally having panic attacks in the backstage before the fashion show,
Yeah.
because they were showing 6 months of work in a few minutes,
Right.
and they're going to be judged by the media, the people, the customer, the commercial, the retailers, and everything. 6 months of work, of creativity and work in a few minutes. So they were
And that's
literally
stressful?
panicking.
I can't imagine why that would be stressful.
It is. And, again, so this is again why I think spirituality is a great resource. I think that it's so important when we allow ourselves to create connections with everything that is part of us. So at one point I just did something simple. I connect my background on spirituality and my expertise in fashion, my love for fashion. So when you're allowed to be yourself, with all the areas of yourself, and you do that as a work, is, I suppose, this is what they call purpose, right? Brad, I suppose is this thing,
Yeah. Yep. Finding that purpose, and it's boy, it sure beats the alternative.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
finding something you love, and obviously, it was divine inspiration that brought you to to the background that you had, and then the things that you've learned, and being able to bring that together to make such a difference for so many people. So I'm very grateful that you allowed yourself to be an open channel for that. And thank you so much for sharing these ideas. And I will have a link to
Mhm.
your book
Thank
and
you.
other resources for folks, so you guys can get the book and learn more about it, and see how, whether you're in the fashion industry or not, just being aware of these concepts of
Mhm.
allowing spirituality, and how it can benefit you and change the world and how you use that. So
Thank you
thank you
so
very much,
much, Brad.
Farah.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure, and can't wait to have you and Christy back to Italy when we will be able to fly. I'm waiting for you guys.
Definitely looking forward to that. Very much looking forward to getting back there.
Yes, yes. David will always be there for you.
Thank goodness. And all the
Yes,
many beautiful places that are there.
yes,
Awesome.
yes. Thank you so much.